What's up guys, it's Niall here from Alternative Review. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the, for me personally, most frustrating releases in the Xbox One's life cycle, and that is State of Decay 2. Now let me just start off by saying that I really wanted to just love, unequivocally, no catches, just love State of Decay 2. The problem for me was just that final product. The only thing stopping me from being able to sing this game's praises without any kind of downside is its apparent unfinished state that still affects the game to this day. We're talking nearly 2 years after release, and after a stream of fixes and even a major gameplay update labelled the Juggernaut Edition. In fact, it was this update that actually made me dive back into the game in hopes of it being that missing piece of the puzzle that ties everything together and produces the polished product that I expected first time round. But first, let's take a step back, because I personally spent a huge amount of time with the first State of Decay game, and I can distinctly remember what it was that made me just love it. It was the atmosphere. You know, it was that atmosphere, it was that community building aspect to the game, and just the absolutely stunning environments. There was nothing like it out there at the time, and that's kind of saying something, given that, you know, a lot of people were playing a lot of zombie games at the time, and as someone who prefers the true survival side of things more than the action side, it was perfect for me. The game rightfully earned some critical and commercial success due to the fact that, again, despite being just another zombie game, it was able to stand out from the crowd in what was already an oversaturated genre, and you know that it still is to this day. It did enough things differently to stand out head and shoulders above the rest, and left people in no doubt that this wasn't at all just another zombie game. Then again, maybe that's not saying much, given that it was releasing against the likes of, well, The Walking Dead Survival Instinct the same year, you know, which is actually released just a few months before it. More importantly, it managed to stand up to a lot of actually really good games around the time of its release. So if we actually were to look at the 2-month span of its release, so it released in June 2013. If we look at June and July 2013 alone, these are some of the games that it had to compete against. You have The Last of Us, Mortal Kombat 9, Hotline Miami, Max Payne 3, Deadpool, XCOM Enemy Unknown, Neverwinter, and Dota 2. Oh, and the biggest one of all, Right to Hell Retribution. How did that one work out again? Let's face it, that's a stacked few months. Many people, like myself, you know, are in no position to spend their money on like multiple games per month, so they'd have to pick their games very, very wisely. And I personally feel like my money was very well spent on State of Decay. Fast forward to 2018, and Undead Labs, the developer of State of Decay, has become a Microsoft first-party studio, and State of Decay 2 is a few months post-release, and things are shaky. The release of State of Decay 2 straight into Game Pass meant that sales would be poor, right? Well, that wasn't actually the case. The May 2018 MPD figures actually showed it as number 1, beating out the recently released God of War and Detroit Become Human, which were both PS4 exclusives. Instantly, people just assumed that the Game Pass downloads are being classed as actual physical sales, or say digital sales. But this was quickly shrugged off, and it was announced that State of Decay 2 had actually hit 1 million copies sold within its first week. No Game Pass included. Granted, it was a little bit of a cheaper title at the time. I think it released, at least in the UK, at about £30-35. You know, and Xbox exclusives as a whole were really sparse. You know, this was before the Game Pass... the first party studio, the Xbox Game Studio acquisitions. So a first party-ish kind of exclusive title was really, really needed at the time. That's kind of where the good news ends though, because constant server issues and massive bug problems at launch meant that the release was just marred with players complaining about their personal experiences, and many who chose to like stream the game or produce video content couldn't do so without having to highlight all of these issues. Some steady fixes and some improvements over the next, 2 years left us where the game is now. Granted, it's in better condition than it was at release by a country mile, but it's still just far from perfect. This Juggernaut edition was the biggest content drop, or also it's a bit of a bug fixing update that was released on the 13th of March this year. And amongst other things, it contained a brand new map, UI and control improvements, some graphical updates with special attention to lighting, a complete rework of weapon durability, a restructuring of the post-tutorial experience, improved audio, and just a buttload of other bug fixes. It was after kind of reading these patch notes I felt there was no better time to jump back into State of Decay 2 and get that experience that I really wanted first time round. I didn't get it. Bugs are still present, lighting isn't visibly any better, zombie AI is still questionable, and overall graphically it's still just average. This was the massive letdown for me, as I even went to the trouble of starting like a brand new save to get the full effect of all the improvements, but it was just a waste of time. Worse still, there are still new glitches and new bugs that I had not experienced in my first few rounds with the game, so it seems that in all these attempts to improve the game graphically and the lighting also, they've actually brought along some new problems. My screen would just occasionally tint a weird green or blue colour, making it look like there was this really bad filter applied to the game. And the lighting was just as bad as the original release, with the darker spaces just being like impossible to see in and read and navigate. But by, popping on our tiny little flashlight, it'd be like blasting a military grade spotlight into a small cardboard box. It was just complete overkill that takes you out of the moment. I'm sounding really negative, and none of this actually means that, State of Decay 2 overall is a bad game. But it did a lot of, it undid a lot of the good groundwork that the original laid out. I'd question that if in 2 years, and with a plethora of updates, we can't fix some of these basic things, then what will? Where do we go from here? Do we go straight to State of Decay 3? Do we do some more work on number 2? It's no secret that Microsoft wants to start pushing out first-party content more frequently, and we have their, digital briefing in July for the Xbox Series X in their Xbox Game Studio reveal, so I wouldn't be surprised to see State of Decay 3 announced early into the Xbox Series X cycle. I'd probably guess more that Undead Labs will be working on a brand new IP entirely. Until then, maybe State of Decay 2 gets the Gears 5 treatment and has like a complete rework, more than just graphically, but brings it up to speed with things for the Xbox Series X.
Now that is a job well done.
Given the state the game is in, I would argue that Undead Labs' next move could be a little bit more important than just what is next. I feel like they do have some work to do in order to rebuild some of the reputation they've lost during this release period for State of Decay 2 and the 2 years after, and I can only imagine how many Week 1 copies ended up back on shelves of pre-owned stickers less than a month later. Yeah, a few have stuck with the game, and I think it even passed like a 5 million player mark back in August 2019, but we're talking that was a cumulative player, that's Game Pass players and physical sales combined, and it doesn't say anything about how like the current active player count is. It's always nice to say 5 million people have played the game, but what if most gave up after an hour? It's like me making this video, getting 5 million views, but people only stick around for the first minute. And by the way, I would totally take that, just saying. The launch of the Xbox Series X is just around the corner now, with a gameplay demo due out on May 7th, which we've already had. The launch of the Xbox Series X is just around the corner. We've already had one look at some gameplay running on the Series X apparently, with the Inside Xbox stream that happened on the 7th of May, but Undead Labs won't be there. We know that's a third-party presentation, and that's exactly what it was, so we'll look forward now to July, where we expect Undead Labs' next project to be revealed. They're a studio that really does have my attention right now, maybe not all for the right reasons, but I'm desperate for them to succeed. I want them to succeed, to grow, and to correct the mistakes of State of Decay 2. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it if you've managed to stick around to the end. Give me a like and a subscribe. Would really appreciate it. I'm going to try and produce some more video content over the next couple of weeks before I go back to my day job post COVID-19. We'll see how the content does after that too. But yeah, if you liked it, drop it a like. You know, drop a comment in the comment section. I'll do my best to respond to everyone if they leave something constructive. If not, you know what? I appreciate you being here either way. You have a nice day now. Cheers.